Okay, by request, I'm adding a couple of things here. I'm going to show how the data is persistent from one session to the other, and this works in the emulator as well as on a device, on a tablet or a phone. So let's look at the to-dos, which is initially empty here. So we're going to add an item here. And I'm using the keyboard since I can, and you could also use this soft keyboard. I'm using the PC keyboard, and here's our bread. The next thing I want to do is add a label which will show the contents. Instead of having to pop up the list picker to see the items, we'll just have a label display everything, and we'll rename this to items label, and this will show the contents of the list picker. Since I have a dark gray background, I'm going to make this a white text display, and I will, just so we have something to show here. Items will display here, and next what we can do is when our list picker has contents, we can then display whatever the contents are in that label. And this is just going to be very basic. So how are we going to trigger the display? Well, anytime we add an item or delete an item, we could show it. That would be one way to do it. Then we wouldn't have to add a specific button. So let's try that. We have our add item button, and we have our delete item button. So what they could do is call a procedure that populates that label with the contents of the list picker. And one way to do that, and we'll make a first stab at it, but we're going to probably have to make some changes to it. And you'll see why. So here's our items label. We want to set the text of the items label to the contents of the list picker. That's our to-dos LPK. Now we just need a way to call this whenever we add or delete an item. So go to our procedures, pull out our display items, put that at the bottom of add item button. Anytime the add item button is clicked, or anytime the delete item button is clicked, we will update this display. Okay, so let's see what we get by trying it out first. We have one item in there. Let's add another item. Okay, so what we get is bread and milk in parentheses, and the reason we're seeing this is because the elements of the list picker are stored in a list, and that's how it shows that this is a list. It puts left and right parens, and that space is just for being able to display this is item 1 of the list picker list, item 2 is milk. There they are. Now it would be nice if we could display these on separate lines, and one way you can do that is to have a for each loop that displays each item and then adds a \n or carriage return to the end of that line. So let's do that. It's under the control section, and this is a case where we can use for each item in list instead of in some cases you need for each number to iterate through a list, but this is going to make it a little bit simpler. Now what is the list we want to go through? That's to-dos, LPK elements. That's how you access all of the elements in the list. So we're going to go ahead and leave item as it is because that's a good name for what we have. We have items in our to-do list. So next we need to set the items label to whatever the current item is. But if we just put item here, let's see what we get. Okay, let's try it out. We're going to add another item. Cereal to go with our milk. Okay, now we have 3 items, but it's only showing 1 item. The reason it's showing 1 is because we're only showing the item that was added. We want to show all of the items in the list, and in order to do that, or actually this is the last item that was displayed, that was contained in the list. So we want to show all items on separate lines. In order to do that, we can grab one of these join blocks, and we need to join whatever was in this text box with the new item in the list. So that means we go back to items label, pull out items label text, and then we add item to that. Okay, we're getting close. Okay, we're getting our items all added together, but we don't have that break that we want between each one. In order to get that break, we add another string block here and end it with a \n. I typed an apostrophe, then \n. That's a shortcut for creating a text block and entering data. So now we have a \/ after that item, and let's go and try it again. Now we're getting a good display here, but we've got all of this stuff at the top. We don't want that old text to display. We want it to refresh each time. So what we can do in order to prevent that old text from displaying, we want to set our items label text. Anytime this procedure display items is called, we want to set this to empty text. That will clear out any previous contents in there, otherwise it keeps adding on to the end of the previous label. Now let's try it again, and we're getting a good display. So we've got our 4 items: bread, milk, cereal, cheese, and the last item we need from the store is eggs. And there it is. We've got our list with our items. We've cleared out the text of the label in preparation for displaying our list. We've used a for each item in list to just iterate through the list picker elements and displayed each item in that list on a separate line by breaking it up with the backslash in. Okay, so that is how this works. Finally, let's look at what we have in our list here. We have bread, milk, cereal, cheese, and eggs. Now, the emulator works just like a tablet or phone in that TinyDB data is stored between sessions. So if I would close this app, and by the way, the goodbye button, which would close application, does not work in development mode. As you'll see here, closing forms is not supported. So what I can do instead is click the menu button and choose stop this application. Now, since I've already saved the data, anytime an item is added or deleted to the to-do list, the TinyDB data, the label, the tag is updated for that database. So the data will be stored, and we will now reset and reconnect to the emulator. And this does take a while. And I have a slow computer, so. But what we want to show here is that when a phone, tablet, or the emulator have saved data in a TinyDB, when you close that application or turn off the phone or tablet or emulator, exit the emulator, next time you start that emulator with the same project or app, okay, now we can see if our data is still there by clicking the to-dos button, and there we have it. All of our items are there. So that would be it. Happy inventoring.